Morning. Okay. How y'all doing? Brock.
Yes. Welcome back.
I posted a video. You were the only one missing yesterday. Yes, sir. What do you got tomorrow? All right. Yesterday we were talking about political parties, and we were talking about the 5 functions of political parties, and we got through 2. Yes?
Great progress.
Well, we went through a lot with the nomination process, okay? Which leads to learning in other areas, okay? So the 3rd function of a political party, the 3rd function, are you ready?
Yes.
Is governmental appointment function. The governmental appointment function. The 5 functions of a political party, number 3. Not doing it again. Now, kind of self-explanatory here. We've talked about things like presidential appointments before, yes? Like, what type of position does the president get to appoint people to? Go.
Judges, federal judges.
Good. And Supreme Court justices. Yes. The cabinet. Yes. And other agencies of certain departments, like the director of the CIA, the director of the FBI, the director of the Environmental Protection Agency. Some of these agencies are staffed by career public servants, civil servants, okay? Some of them are political appointments, okay? Right now, if you were paying any attention to the news in the last 24 hours, you know that Judge Brown is undergoing Senate confirmation hearings as we speak. Yesterday, she took questions from Democrats and Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee, which it is their role to investigate whether Judge Brown should be Justice Brown of the Supreme Court, replacing Justice Stephen Breyer, who will retire. Yes? So, anybody watch any of this, hear anything about it? Anything to talk about with that? Or what clip? The TED questionnaire? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are they allowed to tell the president no? Like,
They can reject this nominee for sure. It has been done before. Now, chances are Judge Brown will not be denied. Okay. You need 51 votes in the Senate. The Democrats have a majority of seats on the Senate Judiciary Committee, so if they approve her, goes to the full Senate, you need 51 votes instead of 60 votes. That changed about 10 years ago. Yes.
Okay, so if the head of the FBI and CIA are just appointed, how do we know if they're going to be like a qualified individual?
They go through Senate hearings as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there like a lot of turnover for those jobs, like every single time?
Not necessarily. So, like, sometimes you'll have an FBI director serve under multiple presidencies, and sometimes you won't. Like, Trump fired James Comey, and probably rightfully so. But Trump fired a lot of people before and after he was president, because he used to have that show where he'd say, "You're fired." Yes, he's good at it. Okay, and then some people just resign as well. So he had a lot of turnover in his cabinet. Trump did. Okay, hey, look, he wants things done a certain way. You don't like it, quit. I'll get somebody else. Talk about that in a second. Okay, so now that's pretty obvious, right? So where does the president get a list of names to choose from for these positions? His party. Okay, so like when Justice Breyer said, I'm going to retire, the Democratic Party said, hey, here's a list of names. And President Biden said, well, wait a second, I'm only going to pick a black woman. So give me a list of black women's names. Okay? I know. Okay? It is what it is. Okay? Now, same thing with vice president. When he chose vice president, he said, I'm going to pick a black woman. Okay? I don't know if he's got a thing or... Yeah, that was a joke. Okay? Yeah.
Political meaning of just, well,
She would be more of a loose constructionist. Now, the only real criticism I've heard of Judge Brown at this point, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to. What you look at is her opinions that she's written. She's a federal judge right now. So you look at the opinions that she's written in cases that she's overseen, and then you can kind of see her style as a judge. The one criticism that I've seen come out about her this far has been over some of the cases she proceeded over dealing with child pornography cases. And I want to just stay with that. I don't know if like child rape issue, I don't know if it extends to that, but child porn, where there were some people that were convicted here that the sentences were pretty light. And so there's a little bit of criticism, like when he's soft on that. Okay, so, we'll see how that plays out. But I know she's answering questions about that today. Yeah, I did see some headlines on that. Okay, so we'll see how it plays out. I think chances are, a lot of times you'll see some Republicans vote for her in the full Senate. I don't know about the committee itself, but in the full Senate, you'll probably see, Mitt Romney and some other folks just, that will vote to confirm her. Okay. So I think she's probably, unless something comes up really bad, in these hearings, I think she's probably going to get confirmed. Okay. Okay. So let me give you another example of appointments. Okay. In 2016, Donald Trump was elected. He took office in 2017. Okay. Mike Pompeo was reelected to the U.S. 4th District from Kansas in 2016 as well. Okay. When Trump took office, he wanted to replace the CIA director. And so he tapped Mike Pompeo to do that. Okay. So Pompeo is going to go CIA. He would have to go through Senate confirmation hearings. Okay. He served in the military with the West Point, finished first in his class, served in Congress, qualified as a lot of people are to be that CIA director. Okay. So what do we do here? We need a new representative for the 4th District. Now, this is a House seat. In the Senate, guys, if a senator dies during their 6-year term, or resigns or takes another position, the governor of that state generally gets to appoint the new senator for the remainder of that term. They don't hold a new election. The governor picks them. With the House, generally they're going to hold a special election. Okay. Now, and I was kind of interested in this, and I bet your dad might have been involved in this a little bit as well. The two parties are going to pick an individual to run in a general election against the other party. Okay, so names like Wink Hartman came up to replace Pompeo. A guy named Phil Ruffin. These are both wealthy businessmen from the Wichita area. These names came up. There was a radio talk show host from Derby. He put his name in the ring. But the party got to choose, not the voters. There was no primary. So the party got to appoint somebody to run for this seat. And the Republican Party chose Ron Estes to run for that seat. Okay, again, and the Democrats picked a person to run for that seat against the Republican. So there was no primary. So where did the Republican Party of Kansas or of Sedgwick County, the Pachydermy Club, where did they find Ron Estes? In the state legislature. He was a Republican that served in the state legislature. And they said, why don't you run for this seat for the 4th District of the U.S. Congress? Okay, and he did, he won, obviously, okay? But the party got to choose, okay? Which is interesting. That's the way it used to be. We didn't always have these primary elections in caucuses. The parties would choose the candidates for president and vice president, okay? Not the voters. I like it this way, where we get to choose instead of the parties, okay? Now, you're going to get your establishment candidates if the party chooses. You know what I mean? You're not getting a Donald Trump. Because the Republican Party didn't want Trump. Okay? The Democratic Party wanted Biden. They got it. Okay? But it doesn't always work out that way. Voters may think differently than the elites in the party. Okay? All right. So, can you get involved in this? Guys, it's very easy to volunteer for the Sedgwick County Democratic Party or the Pachydermy Club, the Republican Party, locally. All you got to do is call them up. Say, I'd like to volunteer. You go in and volunteer, you know what you're going to meet? You're going to meet a bunch of other Republicans or Democrats that think like you do. And you're going to get to know people. And then you go up to college. And you join the college Republicans or the college Democrats. On a lot of college campuses, you have an organization known as Turning Point USA. You guys heard of Turning Point USA? Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens. Okay, these folks, Stephen Crowder is part of that. You know, they try and promote conservative thought on college campuses, which there's a lack of that on college campuses. So they try and promote that with the student bodies. Okay, somebody's reading a book. Who brought me that book by? No, the one Goldberg. Maybe it's the other class. Okay, Joe. Yeah, Goldberg. He was a big part of campus reform. There's another group called Campus Reform. Okay, but anyhow, guys, you get to know people. And then when a position opens up, like a state House spot or a state Senate spot, you turn 25 years old, and they're like, you've got a little bit of talent. Why don't you run for this job? Whether it be the city council, the county commission, why don't you run for this job? We'll back you up. We'll help raise money for you. We'll go knock on doors for you. Next thing you know, you're elected. Okay, it's a lot easier to get elected in this state as a Republican than a Democrat, especially in statewide offices. Depends on where you live, right? So school boards, that's a big thing now, okay? So you get involved. Do you like politics? Get involved, okay? Next thing you know, you might land a job working for a member of Congress, like Ava's dad did, and then land a job working for the governor. Next thing you know, maybe you want to run. Okay? That's how it works. It starts at the grassroots level, guys. Okay? So these parties play an important role in that. Okay. The fourth function of a political party is the watchdog function. Watchdog. Now, we all know with the basic definition or basic knowledge of the legislative branch or Congress is to make laws. They control the purse, right? At a basic level, at a little bit deeper level, Congress also has what's called oversight. As I like to put this, the NSA is watching you. Who's watching the NSA? Congress is supposed to be overseeing the executive branch to make sure that the executive branch is following the law, which is the Constitution. And if the executive branch violates your Fourth Amendment rights of no illegal search and seizure without a warrant or probable cause of a crime, that those people at the NSA be held accountable or be ordered to cease and desist. Yes? So, this is the party that is out of power, watching the party that is in power, the watchdog function. Now, right now, the Democrats control the White House and Congress. So it's hard for Congress to investigate the executive branch because they don't have the power to, because they're in a minority. The last 2 years of President Trump's presidency, he was impeached twice by Congress. Democrats had control of the Congress. Right now, are you aware of any investigations into the Biden administration? No, not by Congress, because Democrats are in control. Now, in November, Republicans retake the House or the Senate, or both. Guess what? They will be opening investigations into Joe Biden. Most notably, over what? Something that most of you probably never even heard of. His son's laptop. Hunter's laptop. You guys know what I'm talking about. But one of the reasons why people don't know more about it is because Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all took those down, any information about that, as Russian disinformation 6 weeks out of a presidential election. 2 weeks ago, the New York Times confirmed that Hunter's laptop that was left at a repair shop and never picked up was in fact Hunter's laptop. And on that laptop, there is incriminating evidence of several crimes by the president's son. Now, the president's son is not the president, right? And if you know anything about Hunter Biden, he's had his struggles in life. Okay? And that's hard as a parent. You know, you raise your kids, you hope you raise them a good way. They go off, they live their lives, and you hope that they do good things and are good people. But you don't have control over an adult child. So you can't blame Joe for everything Hunter's done. I mean, there's pictures, photographs, videos of Hunter smoking crack, naked in pictures with underage girls. It's all on there. And then there's the emails. And if you don't know about Hunter's business dealings while his dad was vice president, he got some really cush jobs, like being part of a board of Burisma, which is a large oil company in, yes, the Ukraine. Does Hunter Biden have any background in the oil industry? No. But he's put on this board. His investment company that he joined got a sweet deal with Chinese companies. And in these emails, you see this. 10% of the money will go to the big guy. Who's the big guy? Was Hunter Biden selling access to the Obama administration through his dad, the vice president? to Chinese companies and Ukrainian companies. Does that not warrant investigation? But Facebook, 50 intelligence officials all said it was Russian disinformation. This laptop is not real. It went away 6 weeks before the election. Oh, it was real. That will be investigated. Will we get to the bottom of it? I don't know. Okay. This happened to Hillary. Hillary had a private server. Guys, if you work for the government, you have a government phone. You work for the people. You work for us. So everything you do is supposed to be transparent unless it's top secret. Yes? That's not for our eyes. That information, while she was Secretary of State, she was using a phone not issued by the government, and she had a private server in the basement closet of the restroom, which is totally against the law. That came out, and that hurt Hillary in 2016. Okay? So, watchdog. We'll see what happens. Okay? Happened with Trump. 2 times impeached. There was investigations for the entirety of his presidency, even when the Republicans were in charge. The whole Russia thing. That the Russians helped Trump get elected. Did the Russians invade Ukraine while Trump was president? Okay. All right. Next, the 5th and final function of political parties is the practical function. Practical. Remember when we were doing the nomination practice yesterday? Now, some of you in here may have socialist leanings, okay? Bernie Sanders is a Democratic socialist, doesn't hide that. Okay, I appreciate that about him, that he tells you who he is. He doesn't try and hide it. So I respect the heck out of that, okay? But what many Democrats saw was that Bernie Sanders was a no for a lot of independents. Like, he may get 35, 40% of the popular vote. But those people in the middle that, hey, I'm not ready for socialism. I don't know if we want to transform, fundamentally transform the United States. So the Democratic Party realized this. And they said, we can't have Sanders win the nomination. It happened in 2016, really more than 2020. Because when Sanders was running against Hillary for the nomination in 2016, guys, there was a groundswell of support by young people of Bernie Sanders, college-age students, and young people that said they're feeling the burn. I don't know if you remember hearing that. Feeling the burn, okay? Bernie Sanders, okay? And so, I mean, that was where, like, you have a rally. You know how Trump had these big rallies and, you know, tens of thousands of people show up. Bernie would have rallies and thousands of people would show up. They were excited about it. You know what I mean? That's where the emotion was. But the Democratic Party said, he's not electable nationally. So they pushed the other candidate. In the practical function here, the likelihood of getting extreme positions in the politics is lessened by the political parties. You know what I mean? Like, we've had communists run for president many times. We've had socialists run many times. But those extreme ideologies tend not to get in because of the parties, if that makes sense. So in a practical way, these parties help suppress extreme views getting into politics. Moderation, compromise, these sorts of things. Okay. Without them, there'd be more chaos, you might say. Okay. All right. So we got those 5. Now we're going to look at, and I mentioned this yesterday, why we are stuck in a 2-party system, or better way to say it, why we are entrenched in a 2-party system. Entrenched in a 2-party system. Write that down. And I have 3 reasons. How many? 3. Some of these are pretty simple, okay? The first reason why we are entrenched in a 2-party system is history. We started with 2 political parties. What were they? The Federalists and Anti-Federalists. And we've pretty much stayed with that ever since. I don't know if you have time. You can do it next week, but you might get your sweater after it's not cold anymore. Yeah. See ya. Did you say bye? Did you want to give it? Okay. You can't. Oh yeah. What were the first two parties? Yeah. Okay. Now think about this. You guys are smart. Do we still have the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists? Republicans and Democrats? Think about it a little bit here. Like Democrats tend to want a little bit more power from the national government to dictate policy. Republicans say, no, we need to leave that local and state. A little bit, yeah, a little bit. Okay, in some areas. So, like with social issues, Democrats would tend to be more anti-federal. Like, let people do what they want, right? Yeah. So I don't know. It's an interesting thought. The second reason we're entrenched in this system is force of tradition. Force of tradition. Or another way of putting it, inertia. Inertia. You guys remember this from science class, right? An object in motion. Yeah, cross-curricular learning, science and government class. Okay. So if it's not broke, now some of us might think, it's broke. Okay. I can always point to the national debt. You know what I mean? It's just like, we got to fix this. Okay. Although, I'll be dead when, the chickens come home to roost.
So it's our problem.
Yeah.
No, it's our grandkids.
Yeah, you can thank the baby boomers. Okay. Not Gen X. We didn't. We were part of it. We're complicit.
Stop it.
We didn't stop it. I tried. Yeah. The criticism is fair. Okay. It's kind of self-reinforcing. The system is. You do get discontent, but usually it's short-lived. We'll talk about, economically. A lot of times, sometimes when you have hard times, you get economic discontent. But when times get better, that economic discontent goes away. People get tired of it, and they, move on with their lives. I mean, we got jobs and stuff, school. We're busy. So now, the third and most important reason why we're entrenched is the electoral system. Okay, and this is on three different fronts here with the electoral system. Okay, so let me pick on somebody. You want me to pick on you, Bergen? Sure. Okay, Bergen. You see those 6 electoral college votes, Kansas? How do you win those? The popular vote where? In Kansas. What percent of the popular vote do you need? Generally 51, but in the state, it would be a plurality. You need the most votes, right? But we'll just, for the sake of argument, go with 51%, okay? All right. So the chances of a third party winning 51% of a state's popular vote is really difficult. So the chances of a third party winning any electoral college votes is difficult. Let me introduce you to somebody that we'll be talking about quite a bit. Ross Perot. You've heard the name. Ross Perot ran for president in 1992. Okay? He was running against the incumbent. You guys know what an incumbent is? The person that holds the office that's running for re-election is the incumbent. The person running against them is a challenger. Okay? The challenger in this case was Ross Perot and Bill Clinton that I talked about yesterday. Okay? Now, Ross Perot is a billionaire businessman from Texas. And he was once a Republican, he was once a Democrat, and now he didn't like either party. Now, actually, I was never a Democrat, but I don't like either party. So, in 1992, there was no Fox News. There was no MSNBC. There was one cable news channel, 24-hour news channel, called the Cable News Channel, CNN. Okay? At 7 o'clock on CNN every weeknight, they had a talk show on. It was hosted by a legendary radio talk show host named Larry King. Yeah, when? Yeah, recently, yes. I thought you said this weekend. I'm like, okay. Yeah, he did pass away recently. Now, Larry King is a legend. So, like Oprah Winfrey's a legend. She's a talk show host, right? On TV. Yes? Ellen, yeah, I mean, Ellen had great success and then she got canceled. Okay? And she probably brought that on herself. I don't know if you heard the stories, but yeah. I mean, I like Ellen. I mean, Ellen's cool.
Martha Stewart went to jail.
Martha went to jail.
We still love Martha Stewart. She is
I don't know the story.
Yeah.
Ellen was really mean to her employees, from what I understand. And like she kind of owned up to it and said, "Okay, I was a bad boss."
No, she just got canceled. She lost a lot of money.
Yeah. So, anyhow, Larry King. Now, Larry King's favorite guest in 1992 was Ross Perot. It was like he was on there at least once a week. Now, Ross Perot, he's got a lot of money, but he had traction because he criticized both parties. You know what I mean? Now, he kind of talked like this. He said, "Now, Larry, if we can get enough people to support me here, we can get both of these parties straight. And let me show you this chart, Larry." And he'd bring charts on, and he'd show people what what he was talking about. And people are like, "I like this guy, Ross Perot. He speaks my language." Okay? Guys, Ross Perot got 19% of the popular vote in this election. 19%. You know how many electoral college votes he won? 0. Bill Clinton won this election with 43% of the popular vote. Obviously, he won the electoral college. Yes.
Is there any way the election?
You're going to have to do a constitutional amendment because you can't change it because it's in the Constitution. Okay. We will talk about that when I get to the executive branch, some different options that are maybe out there. Now, states can change how they do their electors, like Nebraska and Maine. Okay. Now, so a lot of people think that Ross Perot Ross Perot took more votes from Bush than he did from Clinton. Okay, Bush was the incumbent, and he lost. Okay, you don't see a lot of one-term presidents. Okay, so what Ross Perot did, his party was called the Reform Party. Okay, he ran as the Reform Party candidate. Now, here's the other thing. If you want to get your party on the ballot in the state of Kansas for president, or governor, or Congress, how do you get the Reform Party on the ballot in Kansas and most other states? Anybody know? No. You need 50,000 signatures. In 2016, my next door neighbors, Phil and Shirley, he's a pediatrician. They're Nazarenes. They're really nice people. Okay? They told me, they said, we can't vote for Trump or Hillary in good conscience. There was a guy named Evan McMullen that got on the ballot in enough states to win the presidency. He didn't get in all 50 states. Guys, it takes a lot of volunteers to go out and get 50,000 signatures. Okay? He was on the ballot in Kansas and they voted for him. Was that a wasted vote? I mean, Trump won Kansas easily. So whether you voted for Trump or against Trump, I don't know. So some people view voting for a third party as a wasted vote. Like here, you know. Now, the Clinton presidency ended up being a successful presidency. Okay. Would have been as successful under Bush? I don't know. Okay. But it certainly impacted, these 19% of voters impacted the election in a big way. And certainly some Democrats voted for Perot too. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the spoiler effect that these minor parties can have. I'll bring up some more examples of that later. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Ross Perot and the Reform Party's on the ballot in 92 in Kansas. If you do not get 2% or more of the popular vote in that state, 4 years later, you got to start over from scratch. So this really discourages minor parties from even trying. First, you got to get 50,000 signatures in enough states with enough electors to win. And then you got to get at least 2% of the vote in those states to stay on the ballot the next time. That's hard to do for a small party. Now, the Reform Party obviously garnered a lot of support, and they actually did win an office that year in 1992. There was a guy that ran for governor of Minnesota in 92, and he was famous. So you might be able to see a famous person start a third party, but if you're relatively unknown or not rich, it's hard to do. Now, the Reform Party candidate for governor of Minnesota was a former wrestler, like WW whatever wrestler, Jesse the Body Ventura, ran as the Reform Party candidate for governor of Minnesota and won. Okay, former military guy, got into the wrestling scene, did all that, made a name for himself, and was elected governor and re-elected governor of Minnesota. Not the first time Minnesota has elected a celebrity. Many of you guys are reading Al Franken, former cast member of Saturday Night Live for several seasons. He was elected to the Senate. Arnold Schwarzenegger, yeah, California, yeah. Ronald Reagan was a celebrity when he became governor of California. Okay, so this is hard. This makes it difficult. Okay, the other thing is, even if you have a strong third party, the magic number is 270. You've got to get a majority of electoral college votes. Okay? So the chances of that happening with the third party are almost nil. Okay? So, we can go back and look at this poster and look at third party candidates for president. Okay, 1900, nothing, 1924, you might remember Robert La Follette, he was a progressive. Fast forward to 1948, Strom Thurmond runs as a Dixiecrat. You guys know where Dixie is? Dixie's in the South. In Dixie?
Yeah.
Piggly Wiggly? Whataburger? Okay, Strom Thurmond, he's a Democrat his whole life. He breaks from the Democratic Party, starts the Dixiecrats. He won 39 electoral college votes, of course, right here. Yes. He was from South Carolina. Okay. Strom Thurmond started his career as a Democrat, ran for president as a Dixiecrat, later became a Republican, served as a senator from South Carolina until the ripe old age of 100 years old. Was reelected at 98.
Oh, what?
He died about 12 years ago. And let's go more like 16 years ago. Okay. Interesting story about this Dixiecrat. When he died, Strom Thurmond, a woman came forward saying that she had a love child with Strom Thurmond a long time ago. And it was a black woman. And they had a daughter. And Strom Thurmond took care of that woman and his daughter. Now, the daughter was like 50s. You know what I mean? Like, they were old. They never said anything publicly about it until he died. He took care of it. It's a weird story from the segregationists, you understand? You know what I mean? It's just like a weird thing. Now, obviously, he changed, like many people's opinions changed during that time period. Okay? All right, let's fast forward. 56, Walter B. Jones, no affiliation, gets one electoral college vote. I don't know. Fast forward, 60, Harry Byrd, Democrat, got 15 electoral college votes. So one of the states, I think it was Mississippi, switched their votes over. The electors switched to Harry Byrd instead of John F. Kennedy. Okay. 68, and this is probably the most successful one, was George Wallace. You guys seen Forrest Gump? The guy that stood at the schoolhouse door at the University of Alabama to prevent black students from going in, that's George Wallace. You're going to see him in the video I showed you. Okay. He runs in 68 as an American Independent Party. Won 46 electoral college votes. Right here. Okay. Nixon won that election. Okay. Wallace probably took more Democratic votes than Republican votes. Okay. John Hosper's Libertarian got one electoral college vote. Ronald Reagan got one in 76, and Lloyd Benson got one in 88. John Edwards got one in 2004. He was the vice presidential candidate for John Kerry. Yeah.
Where are they getting this one electoral vote?
So electors, so you get the 6 from Kansas, right? Those electors are not bound to vote for anybody. So this is why parties choose their electors carefully. Yes.
So in theory, if like California like really screws up, all 55 could vote Republican.
So in between the time of the election in November and January 6th, when the electors actually cast their votes, you could have a big news story break. You know what I mean? Like something could come out. like the Russians helped Trump win.
Have to have a majority of electoral votes basically to win.
To win.
Yeah. So like, what if you had 3 parties and they all miraculously had 90?
Okay, you want to go 90? Well,
Yeah.
Oh, no, you'd have more than that.
Yeah.
So you would have, let's go 200, 270. Or no, that's
Yeah.
it's 535. So, okay, 135. How's that? 3 parties.
What's 270?
270 is half plus 1.
Half.
So you could get a tie. 269 and 269. And there's a lot of different ways you can do the electoral map to get to 269 to 269, especially with Nebraska and Maine. Okay? I've done it before. There's a great website, the Real Clear Politics website, where you can click on the states and change their color and see how many. You know, it's fun on election years. Now, this has happened twice in American history where neither candidate got a majority of the electors. In 1802, Thomas Jefferson. 1826, John Quincy Adams. Okay? In that case, the House of Representatives chooses the president. Now, this is how it works. Kansas, we got the Republican, the Democrat. Kansas has has 4 House members, right? Kansas has 4 House members. 3 of them are Republican. 1 is a Democrat. Kansas votes for the Republican. California has 53 members of the House. Most of them are Democrats. California votes Democrat. Each state gets 1 vote in the House. First one to 26 wins. Now, back then it was only 13. So the first one to 7 wins. Yes? And that's how Jefferson was elected. Okay, so a strong third party would really screw up our electoral system. The House would be determining the winner a lot. Yeah.
Didn't it like George Washington advise against the 2 parties?
Yeah, and parties in general. But as Madison taught us, factions are human nature. And the only thing you can help is deal with the consequences of them, not manage them. Because the only way to manage them is to do away with the liberty that allows them to exist, or to give everybody the same opinions. Remember that lecture? Good stuff. Okay? So we're stuck. Now, if we had a parliamentary system, we wouldn't be stuck in this, right? We'd have a bunch of different political parties. And all you need is a plurality, correct? Not a majority. But this is our system, and we're stuck with it, whether you like it or not. Now, if you want to build support in Congress for a constitutional amendment, you'll need what percentage of the Congress? 2/3 of both houses to propose an amendment to change this. And how many states are you going to need to change this? Now, are you going to get states like South Dakota, Kansas, Hawaii, Alaska to change this? No. Because it gives states power. And they did that for a reason. Listen, let's just go ahead and talk about it. If you went to a popular vote, more than 50% of the population lives in 8 states. So your Republicans and Democrats and independents would only campaign in populated areas, which would change the parties to the left. So if you are a conservative, or you live in the Midwest or in the South, in the Bible Belt, people in those areas think differently than many on the coasts. Now, obviously, guys, there's more Republicans in California than there are in Kansas. You know what I mean? But it would change the parties. You'd never elect another conservative. Everything would move left. because people would focus on the cities. Not the rural areas, not the suburban areas, but the cities. They would rule. And I think the founders saw that. And they said, no, we're going to give the states power here. Now, unless you understand American history and the reasons why they do things, it's easy to say, why don't we're democracy, why don't we have a popular vote for president? We're democracy, right? Oh, no, we're not. How many times you hear politicians call us democracies? All the frickin' time. All the time. Because they think you're uneducated and you don't know the difference. They think you have more of a, they want you to think you have more of a say than you actually do. Now, you do have a say. Just not in the final decision. Just who gets to make the decision. Good times.